Hey, greetings everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and welcome to the Steadfast and Loyal program.
You gotta light 'em up before they burn it down. Better dig deep and put 'em in the ground. Blood on their hands, they're hellbound. Save us all. Ooh, they're gonna burn it down. Save us all before they burn it down.
Hi, folks. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025. Another time for us to share with you here at the Steadfast and Loyal program. Right now, it's a chilly North Texas, little polar vortex coming through. Hopefully, it won't be as bad as what we experienced, I think, 3 or 4 summers ago. And we're never going to be ready for adverse cold weather here, but hopefully, we won't have 2 weeks of what we saw a few years back. But as we go into 2025, we're almost there with a new presidential administration. But when I was in the Army and I was an artilleryman, we had different types of fires that we would provide to support our infantry or armor maneuver arms brethren. One of the types of fires that we have were called H&I fires. And even if you talk to some old Vietnam guys, they can tell you about H&I fires. It was called harassment and interdiction. And basically what the maneuver guys wanted you to do as an artilleryman was just keep shooting some artillery out there to keep them harassed, keep them on their toes, keep them from settling in and being comfortable. If you knew some routes maybe that the enemy would take, especially at night for resupplying, just throw some interdiction fires out there, and maybe we would, hit some pay dirt. But the H&I fires were meant to just kind of get under the skin of the enemy, to annoy them, things of that nature, to maybe create some type of impediments for their freedom of maneuver. Well, I just recently thought about all the things that we see happening right now in this transition time. It's supposed to be a great transition and all this stuff. But it seems that the Biden administration, on the way out the door, is really shooting a lot of H&I fires at the Trump administration. I'll give you a great case in point. I mean, the Biden administration, you need to just make sure that the boxes are packed and all the files or whatever handed over, smooth transition. But now all of a sudden we got a Biden administration stepping in, making some major decisions, such as telling U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel, two private sector organizations, companies, I'm blocking your deal that you guys are going to make. You're going out the door and you're telling these two steel manufacturing companies that you're going to block their deal, U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel. Now, yeah, I know some people saying, well, Trump said he's going to do the same thing. Trump is the one coming into the office. And I really think what President Trump, because he has a construction background, I think what President Trump always does is what you should do as a parent. You start out with the hardest stance, and then you modify behavior and you ease up your stance. See, I think that what President Trump is trying to do is set an ideal, a precedent, set an atmosphere, this whole thing about tariffs and what have you, because he wants people to start, getting inside their head and thinking about, okay, what does this do for us in our business? And therefore, it gives him leverage. That's what Trump does. You read his book, The Art of the Deal. You understand his negotiating strategy. It's all about leverage. It's all about having the high ground. Now you have the Biden administration who is on its way out, throwing themselves in the middle of something that they really, okay, why? Why would Joe Biden, probably not Joe Biden, well, why would somebody think that in the last 2 weeks of this failed presidency that had a failure in running our vice president to be president after the president decided that, or was told he's not going to run, why are you interjecting yourself into these type of decisions? Again, harassment and interdiction. It's just the same when you go back and you think about the decision to say to Ukraine, you can fire surface-to-surface American-provided missile systems, ATACMS, Army Tactical Missile System, from Ukraine into Russia. You just lost an election. You just had all of your policies repudiated because your vice president was going to carry on those policies. And remember what she said, I would not do anything differently. I mean, so why would you all of a sudden start making these major foreign policy decisions, economic? Why are you still saying we're going to keep writing checks to Ukraine? Billions of American taxpayer dollars when the American taxpayers, they voted against you. Why would you tell Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel that we are going to block your deal in your final 14 days? Because they can just say, well, we really don't care. We'll take this up with the incoming administration, which is what they basically have already said. We're just going to go through and have another CFIUS review under the new administration. But again, I think that what President Trump is trying to do is to tell Nippon Steel is that we want to operate in this deal from a position of strength, not from a position of weakness. But it's not just this type of harassment that we see, and it's just this needling continues on. It's this new thing about all of a sudden they're going to go back and look at some 1953 law to now say that we are issuing rules that will block any type of continental shelf drilling out in the ocean. We just repudiated your whole green energy, nonsensical undermining of our energy security policies by an administration. And here again, in the last 2 weeks, you're going to say, we're going to take action to prevent, to block American energy independence. Folks just voted to say, we don't want that. We don't want to go to Venezuela and beg. We don't want to go to Saudi Arabia. We don't want to go to any OPEC nation and beg. We want to go back to where we had very reasonable gasoline prices. We don't want to be held hostage to the Green New Deal. We don't want to be held hostages to the environmental groups that are out there. And here in the last 2 weeks, the Biden administration believes that they're doing something that's going to tie up the Trump administration. Oh, they're going to have to go through Congress to get this changed. Oh, they're going to have to file a lawsuit. You know, I think it's time that people start understanding that you don't get to rule over our country by executive action and orders and edicts and mandates and decrees. How many of those have we seen in these last month in this Biden administration as they get ready to hit the door? Again, they should be concerned about what goes in which box, not making major decisions that they think are going to tie up or harass and interdict the Trump administration from being able to come in and carry out their policy and their agenda. I mean, it was decided on November the 5th of 2024 by the American people. And it wasn't close. I think it's been, almost some 30 years that a Republican running for president, won the popular vote and the electoral college vote, won all of the battleground states. And what does the Biden administration do? They go back and look at some, 70-year-old law to try to restrict us from once again restoring our energy independence. In other words, on the way out, they're still trying to see how can we punish, how can we screw over the American people? Do you think you're going to win elections in the future? And yeah, I mean, Jimmy Carter has passed. But let us not forget that when we had the Saudi oil embargo crisis, I mean, Jimmy Carter, came up with the Department of Energy, never made us energy independent. Trump did. We're dealing with the Panama Canal thing. We talked about this previously. Because of Jimmy Carter signing away the Panama Canal, a national strategic endeavor. Harassment and interdiction. And then the last thing we got going on here is this Judge Marchand up in New York. First of all, that whole case in New York, I mean, you talk to any legal analyst, it was just a kangaroo court. First of all, you take something that's a misdemeanor, Alvin Bragg, George Soros supported district attorney there in Manhattan. You take something that's a misdemeanor, and all of a sudden you upgrade it to a felony. And then you withhold exculpatory testimony in that court. They didn't allow the Federal Elections Commission to testify in the court to say, there's no there there. This was all drummed up. And now all of a sudden Judge Marchand says, I'm going to sentence Donald Trump. Who cares? Once again, this is part of the harassment and interdiction of the Trump administration. What does the left want to do? They want to change the narrative. But they want to change the narrative not in talking about a new administration and new policies and this is what the American people voted for. They just want the talking point to say, Donald Trump's a felon. The first felon president ever. Even though this judge has said, there's not going to be any punishment. There's not going to be jail time. I mean, because there's no real harm that's been done. It's a misdemeanor that they concocted up to a felony offense. Heard anything from Fannie Willis down in Georgia recently? Nah. So all these things are falling apart, but they just can't help themselves. They have to continue to do this and just wait for these confirmation hearings that are coming up. So yes, a couple of weeks ago with the Biden administration, but the harassment and interdiction of the Trump administration will continue on because the left did not get the memo as to you lost, and this is why you lost. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, Steadfast and Law Program. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, Lieutenant Colonel Allen West here at Watchtower Firearms. This is the custom design AR-15 that was just made for me. It's got my Steadfast and Law logo there. On this side, you can see my signature, my master parachutist wings, of course, American flag. And I just want to tell you that you can't be a great American unless you have a great American weapon. And that's exactly what Watchtower Firearms is building. Great American weapons, all American parts, manufactured right here in the great state of Texas. And oh, by the way, let me see, where is the serial number on this one? TX1836. If you're from Texas, I think you know what that means. God bless you. God bless Watchtower.
Hit, dead center. Yes.
Hey folks, welcome back to segment 2 of this episode, the Steadfast and Law Program. We talked in the first segment about the harassment and interdiction fires of the progressive socialist left against the Trump administration, basically the Biden administration, as they're exiting the door, the things that they're trying to do to disrupt what's going on in the Trump administration. But how interesting it is, one of the collateral damages of the Trump victory, because you don't look at what's happening here in the United States of America. It's having, I think, a global effect. And just to the north of us, we learned this week that Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, is resigning. And if you don't think that this has something to do, like I said, if you don't think that this is not a collateral damage effect of the victory of Donald Trump, think second. Because there's something happening and that people are seeing the left for who they are, regardless of how much harassment they want to continue to inflict, regardless of how much they want to continue to try to interdict and to disrupt Donald Trump and this coming agenda for his 47th presidency. It's going to affect other world leaders if they don't get the memo. Because right now it seems that the Conservative Party in Canada is really looking to have some huge electoral gains coming up. And they don't want the leadership of Justin Trudeau anymore. I think he's been around, about 15 years or so, maybe a little longer. But it goes back, I mean, if you think about the things that he did in Canada to people when it came to the COVID issue, I mean, he went after people's bank accounts. Remember the truckers? He went after a priest who was just out there providing services. Remember the video of the pastor that was having services and the police came into the church? You see, you can only push these policies and this agenda of undermining individual liberties and freedoms so far. Then the people just say, enough. And I guess Trudeau saw the writing on the wall, and instead of being expelled by his own party as the leader, he tried to do the thing that, I guess, I'll just step down. But he's still saying that I'm going to stay in place till I get a replacement. But then, on top of that, I think he said something about suspending the work of Parliament. See, I just don't understand the tyrannical nature of the left. If you realize that you're doing things that the people don't accept, just go away. I mean, this whole talk about Kamala Harris coming back and running again. I mean, give me a break. Maybe she'll run for governor of California. I don't even think she'll run for that. Donald Trump, if I'm correct, won more counties in California than Kamala Harris did. Of course, she just won the coastal elite counties, which is the major population centers. But still, something's happening, and even in California. But definitely something is happening to the north with Canada. Because they want a good partnership with the United States of America. They want a good economic partnership. They want a good energy partnership. They don't want to see what Joe Biden just did, blocking off oil drilling and exploration. Remember, one of the first things that Joe Biden did when he came into office, he undermined the Keystone XL pipeline. It did not just affect us here in the United States of America. It also affected our neighbors to the north, their jobs, their opportunities. And someone's going to buy those energy resources. Do we really want it to be China? Canada, and I think most Canadians, would prefer it to be us. I think Canada would prefer us to see the United States and Canada having a strong economic bloc. Now, it'd be nice if Mexico would get on board and do the exact same thing and secure our border and prevent, the infiltration of the drugs and things of that nature. But no, instead, Mexico is filing a lawsuit against gun manufacturers here in the United States of America. They're trying to blame gun manufacturers in America and gun store owners in America for the violence of the cartels in Mexico. Like gun owners in America are manufacturers are purposefully saying, we want to ship weapons into Mexico. They're not. This is being done by straw buyers. And now they want to shut down our manufacturing capability for firearms. And they think that's going to make them safe. You know, and the Biden administration has joined with them in that. Again, they're on their way out. But when you talk about the collateral damage effects of the Trump victory, that lawsuit is not going to fly going forward. And furthermore, what kind of vehicles do cartel members drive? Should we not hold Ford or Chevrolet? I mean, if they're driving Dodge Ram trucks, should we not hold Dodge, Chrysler, and everybody else responsible? Because after all, cartels are using trucks that you make to drive themselves around. You understand the idiocy of that? So I don't know what's going to happen in Mexico, but we see what's happening in Canada. But perhaps the thing in Mexico is that the leader there understands she's not in control of the country. I don't think she's in control of the U.S.-Mexico border zone. Hell, we ain't in control of the U.S.-Mexico border zone. But that's going to change. And when I hear about these countries, such as Honduras, President of Honduras just came back and said, well, you know what? We're against this whole thing of deporting criminal illegal immigrants back to us. They're your people, but you're telling us that you're not going to accept them. And so now the president of Honduras is threatening to shut down the Soto Cano Air Base, where we have some 800 to 1,000 U.S. military personnel, some military, civilians, contractors, and basically they work counter-drug operations. So now the president of Honduras, and I'm sure that there's some economic impact in the community around the Soto Cano Air Base, she's saying that maybe we should just shut down that air base. But we're not taking back our own citizens that have been allowed to come into the United States of America illegally. They don't belong here. They belong there. But now she's saying that we're not going to take them back there. What kind of world are we living in? And really and truthfully, if I'm the Trump administration, Tom Homan, I really don't care that you may not take them back. They're not staying here. See, there are many means of leverage. I mean, we talked about that earlier with the U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel deal. I mean, Donald Trump will find leverage against some of these countries. And the response from the Trump transition team was very nice. It was very kind. It's kind of like down south when, the old Southern ladies would say, well, God bless you, child. God bless your heart. What they're really saying is, I'm going to get you. See, America is no longer going to be a patsy. The folks in Canada have realized that. And they don't want the leftist leader that they've had, and that's why he resigned. Now, to the South, some people better get on board and realize that as well. I mean, when the President of Panama says to us, the Panama Canal is not for sale. Well, Mr. President of Panama, you need to understand first and foremost, there would not be a Panama, a country called Panama, if it weren't for the United States of America, and there would not be a Panama Canal if it weren't for the United States of America. And the Panama Canal was built for American strategic national security purposes. I think you're going to see a lot more of these things happening where these leaders who have thrived during the Biden-Harris administration and poking their finger in the chest of America It's a new sheriff back in town. Now you can, come out with all of your ranting and raving, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Unless you want to end up like Justin Trudeau, you have to resign. I think there's going to be an incredible movement in our hemisphere. And let's not forget, again, we brought it up last time I was with you, this whole thing about the Monroe Doctrine. I don't think you're going to see China and Iran and Russia and some of these other foreign entities allowed to have such freedom and ease of maneuver in this hemisphere. We're going to be stronger. We're going to be a better nation. We're going to be a more safe and more secure nation. And we're going to demand that our neighbors do what is necessary so that America can be safe and secure, being in our northern border or our southern border. Or else you may find yourself having the exact same fate of Justin Trudeau. You may not be there as a leader anymore. And we will do what is necessary to work with new leadership that will ensure the safety and security of these United States of America. So Justin Trudeau, I know you went down to Mar-a-Lago. You thought you could ham it up and what have you, but you just ended up looking weak. And I think the folks in Canada are sick and tired of your weakness and your tyranny. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Steadfast and Loyal Program. We'll be right back. So here's the Alan West version, Watchtower Firearms, a BDR-X. You can see it has the Steadfast and Loyal podcast logo on it. And on this side, you've got, my actual digitized signature and my Army Master Parachutist wings. And of course, you got to have the American flag. And again, this is such an incredibly light weapon. I just can't believe it. And I like the skeletized design. And this flash suppressor here is unique. They make it here at Watchtower, and it actually reduces the rise of the weapon when you fire it. So I'm just looking forward, and Magpul hard sights, and I think I'll keep hard sights on this, but I'm looking forward to taking it out here and shooting it and zeroing it in. And I love the skeletized hand grip here. And of course you got the extendable, butt stop, and I prefer this forward hand grip, more than anything else. I really like this. So here it is, right up there next with Rob O'Neill. It's hard to believe that, but that's why America's such a great country. Where a kid born in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, can have an AR-15 designed by him and with his signature on it, limited edition. So check out their website, watchtowerfirearms.com. And if you want, you can purchase one of these.
Before they burn it down.
Hey folks, welcome back. Segment 3, this episode of the Steadfast and Loyal Program. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here. We started out talking about the harassment and interdiction of the outgoing Biden administration against the Trump administration. Getting involved in major decisions when you're, 2-3 weeks out from hitting the door, and how that continues on. And then we looked at not just the damage that Trump's victory has caused to the progressive socialist left here in the United States of America, but now we find out that Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, has decided to resign. And we see some of these, neighbors to the south trying to rise up and flex some muscle, being it the leader of Mexico, leader of Honduras, leader of Panama. People are going to get deported out of the United States of America. Telling us that you're not going to accept them, that's probably not going to work. Telling us that the Panama Canal is not for sale, it's probably not going to work. You're operating from a position of weakness. And I think that this is something that the American people want to see. They want to see a nation that is energy independent. That's a position of strength. They want to see a nation that is economically strong and powerful. They want to see prosperity. They want America first. And as we look at our neighbors, if our neighbors are not concerned about ensuring American safety and security, you're on the wrong side of the aisle. Which leads me to talk about how we woke up to 2025. You talk about safety and security. And I think, again, this is a result of these past 4 years of fecklessness and weakness from the Biden-Harris administration. 14 people lost their lives in New Orleans, 3 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Day. 37 people were critically wounded. One individual, Shamsud Din Jabbar, 42 years of age, from right down the road in the Houston, Texas area, Beaumont, Texas, was the terrorist, ISIS-inspired, who conducted this attack. Now, ISIS, remember that group that Barack Obama, Biden administration, he called them the JV team, some type of JV team. When you think about the carnage, the havoc that they created. All throughout the Obama-Biden administration, nothing was done. How many times have we watched the videos? People being burned alive, people being run over by tanks, people being beheaded, Americans losing their lives because of ISIS. Then all of a sudden someone comes in the office, 45th president, and next thing you know, ISIS is kind of cooked. That leader that ISIS had, they tracked him down into a tunnel. He popped a suicide vest, died like a coward. People were upset that we said he died like a coward. That guy from Iran who was the head of their Quds Force, a terrorist organization, General Soleimani, smoked him. See, that's how you deal with terrorism. You don't talk to them. You don't try to understand their qualms or what their feelings are. No, you smoke them, which is exactly what we have seen Israel do to Hamas and Hezbollah, completely decapitating their leadership. But here in the United States of America, we have coddled this, and we have allowed these pro-Palestinian, no such thing, pro-Hamas, because Hamas is the governing authority in Gaza, and Hamas is a designated terrorist organization. We have allowed them to come onto our streets. We have allowed, through the open borders that we talked about, our safety and security, that people down south of the border have not stood forthright with us to try to prevent. We have allowed terrorists and other elements to come into this country. We have allowed the resurgence of Islamic jihadism right here in the United States of America, to the point where someone can say in a video that at first he wanted to kill his family, but then all of a sudden he decided that would not get me the headlines to show the war between the believers and the unbelievers. His words, Mr. Jabbar, 42 years of age. And the incompetency that we have seen from law enforcement there in New Orleans, I mean, they should have known to make sure that this walking area for people, you got to barricade it off. They didn't. So when I think about what happened on New Year's Day with Jabbar, and then Matt Livelsberger, who was 37 years of age, dude was a Green Beret, stationed over in Germany. Home was listed in Colorado Springs. There's a Special Forces group headquarters there. And somehow he rents a vehicle using the same type of vehicle rental app. I never heard Turo. I just use Enterprise. That's a similarity there. Some people say, okay, they were both, had been at Fort Bragg. I've been at Fort Bragg, so I don't think that's something that you could really use. But it's interesting to me that same type of vehicle rental app, the same day, New Year's Day. Now, people are trying to, say that Livelsberger, the guy there who shot himself and then detonated, bombs and explosives inside this Tesla Cybertruck, which didn't work very well. It was very well contained within the vehicle. 7 people were injured. Livelsberger was the only person that died. But again, this is what we woke up to on New Year's Day. How come we were not tracking this? I mean, we do a good job in the military tracking the social media of chaplains to speak out against transgenderism and same-sex marriage. Were there no indicators and warnings about Matt Livelsberger? Were there no indicators and warnings about Shamshu Jabbar? I mean, think about this. The mosque that Jabbar went to issued a statement to or a note to all of his congregants: don't talk to the FBI. Send them or refer them to CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations. CARE is the unindicted co-conspirator in the largest Islamic terrorism funding case, the Holy Land Foundation case trial that was held in Houston, Texas. CARE is Hamas, and Hamas is the Muslim Brotherhood. So therefore, CARE is the Muslim Brotherhood here. Why is it that mosque would tell folks, their congregants, not to talk to the FBI? Send them to CARE. See, I got to tell you, something's not right in that mosque. They should be freely speaking about what's going on in that mosque. We should know what has been going on in that mosque. We should know if that's an indoctrination center. People go into this guy's, ramshack little trailer park and, they found all kinds of stuff. He did try to lay out a couple of IEDs, but then they left a lot of evidence still there. Why? Are we worried about their sensibilities, that we don't want to say anything bad to hurt anybody's feelings? 14 Americans who were just on Bourbon Street, terrain in the new year, are dead. I'm kind of sick and tired as the Biden administration goes out the door. Things happen and they never close the case. I still would like to know about this guy who took the shot at President Trump there in Pennsylvania. How does that happen? Have you heard anything about the guy who set up his little sniper nest there at the West Palm Beach golf course against? No. And so I think that this FBI that we have currently under the Biden-Harris administration, they just want to try to be quiet. As a matter of fact, how is it that incredibly incompetent, I want to say ignorant, FBI spokesperson came out and immediately said, this is not a terrorist attack? How could you say that? And then we come to find out everything. I mean, the guy had an ISIS flag in the truck. He made videos. He made videos and posted to social media, and we couldn't track this guy and at least put out a warning or something to the area. Be on the lookout, a BOLO alert. There are too many questions. Why does a Special Forces Green Beret, and don't give me this crap about, he was upset about Ukraine. He was despondent. Jabbar, he had 2 bad divorces. New Year's Day, same car rental app. And there's no coincidence about this Tesla thing outside Trump Tower. Yeah, it couldn't be, right? When are we going to get answers? See, this is why I think that the left, they don't want to see someone like a Kash Patel being the head of the FBI. Some things will change in the FBI. The subordinate leadership there in the FBI, you got some great agents in the FBI. But I'm telling you, some things are going to change at the FBI, and we're going to start to get some answers on some of these things. But we've got to be safe and secure in our homeland. And right now, we're not. Someone sent a message to us on New Year's Day, 2025. And this period of transition is going to be very difficult in these final couple of weeks, and maybe even the early weeks of the Trump administration. But it all comes back to the fact that we turned a blind eye. FBI, they're happy to go out there and call parents domestic terrorists. They're happy to go out there and arrest people that are outside of abortion clinics. But how do we miss these guys? Lieutenant Colonel Alan West will be right back. Hey, folks, welcome back to the final segment of this episode of the Steadfast and Loyal program. We just finished talking about New Year's Day of 2025, what we awoke to. And speaking about being woke, can you believe that ESPN cut away from the moment of silence in the national anthem at the beginning of the Sugar Bowl game between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? They cut away from the moment of silence in the national anthem the day after a terrorist attack there in New Orleans. Now, if you had been watching through the SEC network, the Southeastern Conference network, you would have seen the moment of silence and the national anthem. The woman who sang the national anthem, boy, it was up there with Whitney Houston almost. But why would ESPN not air it? Why would the CEO of Allstate get on and have his little, I don't know, some type of commercial and where he's talking about what happened there and talking about how we have to accept people's imperfections? What? Is that what we call a terrorist attack now? An imperfection? That CEO at Allstate needs to go. But coming back to the whole thing about our safety and security, we're on a battleground now in the United States of America. There's no doubt about it. We have to understand that we've got terrorist cells that are operating here. And maybe they're in some of these locations and they're radicalizing weak minds to do what Jabbar did, to do what Matt Livisberger did, which failed, thank God. But we have got to be aware of this. But something else that happened on New Year's Day that a lot of people aren't talking about. There was a march in New York City on New Year's Day. And in that march, people were shouting, there is only one solution, Intifada revolution. Now, not just in New York City. We also had one of these marches down in Austin, Texas, the capital of Texas. The same Texas where Shamsuddin Jabbar has been living. But let me explain to you what Intifada means. Intifada means uprising or shaking off. It's an Arabic term, uprising. But what Intifada, if you talk to people in Israel, and I've been to some of the locations in Israel that were the results of an Intifada attack, an Intifada means violent terrorism. There's this thing going around called globalize the Intifada. And on New Year's Day, we had 2 terrorist attacks. I know some people saying Livisberger was not a terrorist attack. Anytime you take an action to try to instill fear into people, that's a terrorist attack. So we had 2 terrorist attacks. And then we have a march in New York City on New Year's Day. The Palestinian Youth Movement, along with the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the People's Forum. This unholy alliance between progressive socialist leftists and these Islamic jihadists out there waving the terrorist flag of Hamas and shouting out, there is only one solution, intifada revolution. What does that tell you? The time for talk is over. All of these things came together on New Year's Day. Maybe I'm the only dummy that's looking at it from that perspective. That someone is sending a message to us in the United States of America. And they did it on New Year's Day of 2025. And I'm sure that if we were to start talking about, our FBI asleep at the wheel, caught with their pants down, not the everyday agents, but the leadership. The FBI in the United States of America is more so concerned about going after parents as domestic terrorists. They're more so concerned about surveilling the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church is pro-life. But they won't say a damn thing about some of these mosques that are out there in the United States of America cooking up this crap. They won't say anything about an organization that will put together a rally on New Year's Day in New York City screaming about an intifada revolution. Why? Is this some of that politically correct, critical race, culture, multiculturalism BS that's going to get us killed? The got 14 people killed on New Year's Day in New Orleans. And then we get some DEI hire spokesperson to stand up there and say, this wasn't a terrorist attack. See, I think the left has this sick, deranged definition of security. Their definition of security is that we have to secure our ideological agenda. We have to protect our new religion. You talk about you don't like dismembering babies in the womb, we're going to arrest you. You don't like drag queens, story hour and all that stuff, we're going to arrest you. You speak out against our agenda, we're going to arrest you. You speak out against climate, we're going to attack you. You speak out against climate change, global warming, whatever it is today. But the whole time, the real enemies of the United States of America, they're having a free-for-all. They're all over the place, doing whatever they want to do. They're out on our streets saying that they want to have an intifada revolution, a violent uprising. They can have a rally and shout death to America. Nothing happens to them. You show up at a school board meeting saying we don't want critical race theory taught to our kids, you get arrested. These are the people that America decided we don't want you to be in charge on November the 5th. But yet they continue to try to harass and do everything they can on the way out. And they're going to continue to try to do the exact same thing. They got mayors and governors that stand up and say, we're going to protect these criminal illegal immigrants. We got Trendy Aragua, a violent Venezuelan gang, now saying that we're going to use weapons to force our way into the United States of America. We're going to attack Border Patrol. We're going to attack the National Guard. Remember that video of the National Guardsmen here in the state of Texas being overrun by a bunch of single military-aged males pushing down the gate? Not a dadgum one of our National Guard guys were armed. That's why we're in the mess that we're in. That's why America voted the way that it did. And then on top of that, you got these leftists that tell you, you can't be armed. We don't want you to be able to protect and defend yourself. All of these major cities have some of the most draconian gun control laws around. Someone should have been wailing at that guy, Shamsuddin Jabbar, as he was driving high speed down Bourbon Street. A civilian should have been able to take that guy on. Now, thank God that you had law enforcement officers that moved to the sound of the guns and the chaos there in New Orleans. And as soon as that guy jumped out of his vehicle and started shooting at people, they gunned him down. But civilians, everyday Americans, we should have been able to gun that guy down. See, going into 2025, we got to understand something very simple, that we can't carry a law enforcement officer on our hip. That we have seen our FBI just completely lose focus. I'm glad Christopher Wray stepped down. But watch and see at the Senate confirmation hearings for Kash Patel. He'll be prepared for it. But watch at all the mess they try to throw at him. Instead of realizing we got a problem in our FBI. And when you have a problem in your FBI, the results are what we saw on New Year's Day of 2025. An investigative agency is out there investigating. They're looking for trends. They're looking for indicators. They're looking for warnings. They're following the bad people. Not a grandma. You know, I hope one of the things that President Trump does, not soon after he takes office, all those folks from January the 6th of 2021, I hope he releases them. Pardons them. How interesting it was that the attorney there, the federal attorney in Washington, D.C., he's resigned also. Bring him back. Liz Cheney getting a medal. Benny Thompson getting a medal for the lies and say, bring them back. And don't tell me that, oh, you know, he's releasing these violent January 6 people. The only people that died on January 6 were the folks that were there. There weren't any law enforcement. They didn't get killed. Americans are dying. Joe Biden has just released a bunch of, you know, pardon all kind of criminals, murderers. And that's supposed to be okay? There's something that's going to be very different in the United States of America in this 2025. We're going to restore liberty and freedom. But we're also going to restore our safety and security. And agencies and people that don't want to be responsible and accountable to the American people, those days are gone. In 2025, we will be looking for folks that will lead and protect this country. Men and women who will be steadfast and loyal.
Before they burn it down.